And this morning, the Blue Jays are out and singing. You know, I had a thought earlier this year. I think I saw or heard a Blue Jay one day. And I suddenly realized, I can't remember the last time I saw or heard or even thought about a Blue Jay. And I just didn't really think they lived around here. And I finally realized it's because I don't really get out and notice nature the way I did as a kid. But I'm getting that back. And, laying back and looking up at trees, it's a funny thing because I never really realized just how beautiful any forest is and how just psychedelic and trippy it is to look up and see fractal patterns like that. I mean, I've never, it's insane. And that's one of those things that as a kid, I'm sure that I looked up at trees and saw the beauty, but I never noticed. I never really laid back and said, wow, aren't trees beautiful when you look at them from the underside, especially when they're swaying. And it's very hypnotic. Useful in my experiments and explorations of consciousness, altered states, accessing other dimensions, syncing the hemispheres of my brain, integration, that sort of stuff. So I don't know if what I'm saying is all making sense because I'm just going on and on. I'm a little bit hypomanic and I feel silly for rambling and making these videos sounding silly. I took some Adderall too, but which that definitely enhances it. But I'm experiencing these really intense profundities, and I've realized that I have to be careful to not feed that too much. And I've been doing that. I've been really not feeding the mania for this whole year. For the most part, a little bit of feeding it, but mostly I'm wary of it. But right now I'm like, I'm just gonna let it all flow out, and because when my brain is making lots of connections, I gotta be willing to go around and just try out, sort of stuff that are on the outliers to test the limits of what I should believe and how I should perceive the world. So, if I'm willing to entertain the thoughts of, goblins banging on my roof, that might be silly, but just believing in some weird stuff has sort of given me permission to sort of explore strange ideas, and I've discovered really profound truths because I wasn't afraid of going where the rabbit hole led. And there are rabbit holes that lead to weird places. And anyway, that's all I got. What am I going to do with my day? I'm going to play a little guitar. Going to do some art. And yep. I actually brought a sleeping bag down here, but I left it back here, and I had all these grand plans at the beginning of the spring to just come out here and like set up a chair and make this sort of like a hangout zone and actually possibly get a sleeping bag and tent and sleep out here, but I never did. I just had so much other distractions going on in my life. Just so much stuff has happened this past year. It's insane. Um, that I had to prioritize some stuff and my plans of healing through nature didn't really take root. I didn't really turn into the green man. That's what I'm trying to do. I want to turn into the green man. I want to be one with the forest and the eyes on the trees. And so I fell short, and then suddenly this intense cold hit. It was the coldest winter I can even remember. It was a sudden cold snap right after solstice and Christmas, right around that time. Well, a little bit before it, but it doesn't matter. It sort of forced me inside. It was so cold that even if I bundled up, it was just not worth even trying to get outside. And it has been a time of reflection, a time of shining the light in dark places. Walking the spiritual path where it has led, and it has led to this place for a reason. And right now, it's like a seed gets planted, and you're like bummed because it didn't grow, but it's not something I can force, because part of the spiritual connection with nature is you let Mother Earth be who she is and provide for you, and you walk the paths, and you take authority over situations, and you fight your monsters and stuff, but I think perhaps I needed to get cut off from nature for a bit in a sort of drastic way, so that when I experience it again, even in the middle of winter, I am willing to go full in on spending every moment, if it's nice out and it's light out, to heal, because I have to heal. And I guess it's funny, because I feel like the fact that I feel like healing needs to take place right now, and that I'm going to, is evidence that it will, because it's just one of those convictions that you just sense God wouldn't give you unless you were there. We're almost there. And I think that I guess I wish it had been a shorter path, but so long as it's soon to be over now, the path of suffering and bad karma and curse and damage, the psychological process that was necessary for me to go through was to experience and realize the myriad of psychological and emotional issues I have. And one of the purposes of having to explore all those dark shadows and monsters over and over and over again is to teach me to see in the dark so that I would have insight when facing the world, facing people, recognizing, why people are the way they are, why you are the way you are, why I am, and how to heal and integrate those broken pieces. And it takes time. If God really wants to teach you something, you got to learn by experience, right? And that takes time. We are limited by time. And so it's taken me, when did, I lose my way? I guess you could say about 2007. So it's been like 15 years or so. And before that, when I was 6. But anyway, I'm spacing out now. So what was I going to say? I'm really hungry. I'm just starting to get hunger pangs and getting distracted from my words of esoteric wisdom. I was just going to say that, when I first moved into Glen Owen, I really reached out and I experienced nature really deeply. It's weird how it was actually so exciting to, tramp through the creek and the pond throughout the summer, and I kind of stopped that. So it's like, those choices the last couple years to go on drives, to go to Bear's Den, to go for walks, that even though I would be doing these self-improvement, activities, achieving goals, in meditation, and I was just still just freaking depressed and anhedonic. But the fact that I did those then mean that I'm building on that now, but it's fresh this time. So I think that I want to this is an interesting thought. As a I remember one time when I was really high on marijuana, and I was looking at a house plant, and I started to feel like I was telepathically communicating with it. And I was agnostic as to whether I was actually doing it or not. I was like, hey, maybe, but it certainly feels like it. And it did make me realize there was truth in that sense of communion, because I was sensing that this plant was an intelligent being, because plants they have intelligence, they act rationally, they form complex relationships and communications. It's crazy. And that's just we have all these branches in our brain that utilize different pathways to move energy around. Well, right there you're seeing this big structure that just happens to be on the outside of it that, look like, I think you could say that it looks a little bit the way I would picture a picture of neurons, a close-up of neurons in a brain. And so to piggyback on that stoner thoughts is I want to look up, lay back, look up and watch the trees and just ask them, what are you thinking? Can I tap into somehow this ecosystem and become a part of it essentially? And simply by meditating and basically I wonder if you could meet, and this could be something that you might experience on ayahuasca or DMT, but I could certainly imagine discovering, because I do think that this is true in some places, that there are deities that rule over certain areas. There are inhabitants, there's weird creatures, there's ghosts, there's all sorts of, you name it. I think that the spiritual realm that overlays this is full of creatures, and certainly angels and demons. And I think that there are certain. So basically, the question is, hey, I wonder if there is like a spirit of the forest to live here, or multiple ones, like naiads and dryads. I think are spirits of trees in Narnia. Or, you see a little satyr or a fawn running by, and then you look up and you see this massive figure, this bearded ent tree person looking down at me and saying, "What are you doing in my forest?" He's basically the god of the forest. I really want to bring back polytheism. I think polytheism, it kicks ass, and it actually fits within my theology. If I were to call what I believe religion, contains room both for all the God on all these different levels. So pantheism, monotheism, and even polytheism. Because to deal with, if you're dealing with this angelic being that's 50 feet tall, and he's sort of the ruler of a realm, you can still believe that there is a singular God that he also lives under. But practically speaking, when you're dealing with him, you have to treat him as a god, because he has the powers that human beings, used to attribute to multiple deities. And then Christianity and Judaism came, and they sort of rolled them all into one and said there's only one, which I do think got us closer to a central truth. But I think that we've lost something. And with losing some of the old gods. And so I have come to revere Ishtar. She is a mother goddess, and she is a symbol that I 100% believe God prophetically told me that there is spiritual depth to my connection with her. Her connection to solstice, it's very deeply personal. And I'm blown away that learning about ancient myth could show up in the way it did. And so I think it's just cool I used to think that the goal was simplicity in spirituality. Like you want to go more, well, I started with Tibetan Buddhism, but I always felt like the more ideal pure stuff is just emptiness. You stare at a wall and you just, I was thinking about Zen enlightenment, and it's about simplifying everything and everything becoming simple and smooth. But the path of, I'm not a monk, I am a shaman. And so I am more psychologically, I've made the mistake of thinking that because for most people, I think Zen is more the way to go. But I'm more of the psychonaut DMT machine elf type of person. I'm just wired to explore these realms. And sometimes I feel like I shouldn't be doing that. I should be focusing on just the enlightenment. Like that's more pure, but believing in magic and practicing it in the real world and seeing effects, it brings joy and I have to forge my own path, and I believe that the path that I'm forging is 1 is nature, 2 is meditation, 3 is I'm going to devote myself to magic eyes and the magic eye technique of brain hemisphere syncing. And I believe that I may have found a secret to meditation that will give me, let's just say this. I'm just naturally so depressed that sitting alone with my thoughts for a long time, it just makes me sit there feeling depressed, and I'm okay. But all right, I'm gonna stop talking now. That's about it. All right. Time to go and start. I've already started my year off pretty good, but today's the first day I have an excitement about it. And yep,